Welcome, welcome. So we're going to talk about Holy Chutzpah, Jewish Chutzpah, and how we have this power when you use this Holy Chutzpah properly for good things to connect us to God's will and to connect ourselves with God as God is beyond um, the rules of the world that He created. God created the rules of the world that we're supposed to follow. But if we connect to God for a good reason, to a level of godliness and God's power that's not limited by the rules that He created, not limited by the rules and the norms of the world, then with our Jewish holy chutzpah, we can actually elicit and bring down this energy to actually change the world, make an effect on the world, be able to make the world take on a new form of reality that's not limited by the norms and by the rules of the world. So I'm going to explain what I just said. It's a Sikha from Over the Rebbe in 1992, 57, 52. Sikha that talks about Yehuda approaching Yosef with Holy Chutzpah to give him permission to not cause a problem between them and their father with regards to Binyamin, and not to take Binyamin as a slave, like the ruler of Mitzrayim, who was Yosef at the time, wanting to do. And Yehuda had to approach him and say to him, to explain to him, beg to him, and tell him he can't do that to them. He can't take Binyamin. And he was willing to put himself on the line with Holy Chutzpah in order to do what's right. And the fact that he did that gave him the power to actually have an effect on the situation and change the situation. And this tenacity that he had, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, we have to learn something from it. It's not just a nice, cute story that took place a few thousand years ago. It is something that it's an instruction for us how we can be like Judah or Yehuda in our times when we're facing adversity, when we're facing rules or regulations or things that aren't allowing us to do what we need to be doing in this world. So that's one example. And then the Rebbe takes this example, and we'll explain it more, and he compares it also and ties it into the example of Mordechai HaYehudi, the Jewish leader of his time in the time of Paras and Madai of Persia, and the king of Achashverosh, like we all know, the story of Esther. So Mordechai, it says, he was in a position where he was leading the Jewish people, and there was also a decree that everybody had to bow down to Haman. Whenever Haman passed by, everybody in the street, everybody around would have to just get on their hands and kneel and knees and kneel and prostrate themselves on the floor. Now, Mordechai HaYehudi, who chose not to do that, and he went against the decree of the king. That was very chutzpahdik. And that's what caused Haman to be very upset and try to get back at him. Now, the Rebbe doesn't go into the whole details of the story. The concept is that Mordechai HaYehudi had this tenacity and this holy chutzpah, and there was a reason more to it that he didn't want to bow down. But what we're trying to learn from it, the Rebbe was saying, is that we can have also this aspect of this Jewish chutzpah when it's needed. Now, the question is also that the Rebbe deals with is, when is this holy chutzpah needed? What's the category where we're supposed to use holy chutzpah for? So obviously, just to make ourselves look smart or important, or be proud of ourselves for doing something not necessary, with no values or goals. Obviously, that's not the chutzpah that we're talking about. We're talking about holy chutzpah, Jewish chutzpah for a good cause. So what kind of a good cause? So first of all, the Rebbe explains when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs, holy good things, obviously it's very clear to us that we need to be like a Mordechai HaYehudi or like a Yehuda, have that holy chutzpah and be not willing to give in, not be willing to bend in to fear or to obstacles, right? We have the power as Jews to hold on to our godly belief and faith and be able to persevere when things are wrong and we need to fight them. Then the Rebbe goes and explains even further that really what Mordechai was called Mordechai HaYehudi, the Jew. Why was he called the Jew? But and the rabbis explain Jew means that anything that had negation to Jew or to God, like any type of idol worship, was something that he negated. That's what Jew means. He's kofer, he negates avodah zarah, he negates anything that's serving other gods, meaning serving other powers. So anything that gives credence or gives power to anything else other than God, he was totally against that, kosher, like not accepting and negating. That's what the title Yehudi means. This for me, this is significant because my name is Yehudi, which is the same root, which means to acknowledge God and to not accept anything that's negating God. So the Rebbe adds to this, though, really, if you look a little deeper into this concept, what does it mean, anything that negates God? When it comes to a Jew's connection to God, he's not connected to God just when he's observing a certain law or rule, Torah or mitzvah observance. He's connected to God with God's will of anything that God wants. So anything that's contrary to God's will, whether it's permitted or not, but it's not really what God really wants, is also something that a Jew really is not for him, not for her. And vice versa when it comes to positive things. Positive things are what's our real desire is to be as a Jew. As a Jew, our desire is just what God wants. It's like we have, in a way, not in the Sikh, another Sikh, the Rebbe explains, we have a husband-wife relationship with God. Husband-wife is like we're in sync. We're like one unit. What you want, I want. What I want, you want. When we want the same thing, we're on the same wavelength. That's, when we're united and we're a unit, one unit. So the consciousness and the awareness and the desire to be in sync with God and be one with God is not just when it comes to like once a day I pray, or once a day I give charity, or once a day I take on something. It's my whole entire day, my whole entire being is to be within God's realm, connected to God, and in sync with God's will. So that's how the Rebbe says we can define ourselves as a Yehudi. So this idea of being holding strong like Mordechai HaYehudi, to not bow down or not give in to anything that's contrary to God, the Rebbe says that can extend also to anything that's contrary to God's will, that's even if it's permitted, but it's really not God's will in the world. And so the more we're in line with God, we're in tune with what God wants for us and what God wants for the world, the more we're on this level of Yehudi, of being willing to stand up strong, even for things that it might be allowed, but we don't want to give into it because it's not for God's sake. Okay, it's maybe just a norm or a rule that has existed in the world for whatever reason. Now, the major breakthrough that I see in this Sikh of the Rebbe is that what the Rebbe says is that if we really want to affect a change or make a change in the world, or if we see something that bothers us, it's not right. When we say, even if it's permitted by Torah, but we don't feel it's right, it's wrong. Let's say somebody's taking advantage of somebody's being sly or being deceptive, taking advantage of vulnerabilities of people, let's say according to Torah law, we don't have to do anything about it. It's not our job. We're not the Jewish police, or we're not the people who can maybe make the change. We're not responsible for this person to save this person, or we're not, it's not our realm. And according to Torah, we don't have to do anything. So the way I understand what the Rebbe is saying is no. Is if we're truly in line with God's will and we're in sync with God's desire, and we have this holy chutzpah, like Mordechai Yehudi or Yehuda, we do want to put ourselves in the reality of godliness, that God is not limited by the rules of the world as they're set up, even by the rules of Torah law, that we're obligated or not obligated. We just want to do God's will. And when we align ourselves with God's will, as it is God's will, for whatever, without taking into account the norms or the rules of the world, we can align ourselves with the power of godliness, the Rebbe says, which is the power of God, which is beyond the rules of the world, beyond the regulations, beyond the restrictions, beyond the laws of nature. Okay, God created the rules of the world, he created the laws of nature, and that he chose to do in order to create a world that has a certain order to it and a certain revelation of godliness within a certain quantitative and qualitative amount, limited by these rules and regulations that God created. However, there is an aspect of godliness that is beyond these rules and regulations. And if we want to connect to God on that level, of that God is really not limited by the rules he set up in this world, then we can have that power of godliness beyond the world to actually affect a change in the world. So when we have this Jewish chutzpah and we want to be in tune with God as he is beyond, God's not limited by the rules of the world, we can have that power of God to affect the change in the world and create new rules for the world and affect the change that even non-Jews, even the rulers of the world, people who have maybe not so much connection seemingly to godliness, will help us. Not only will they not stop us, the Rebbe says, from doing God's will and affecting change and changing the rules and the norms, but they'll also help us in our job. As the Rebbe says, we see in our times that there are countries, not only they stopped persecuting Jews or stopped people from observing Torah mitzvahs. They're not doing that anymore. They're allowing people to keep Torah mitzvahs in their countries. But not only that, we see that countries are assisting Jews to do their job and assisting them to have more abundance and more wealth and more resources and more of what they need and more rules and laws. They changed the laws to help them. I have a cute story from a woman I know in Los Angeles. She's an attorney, and she years ago, a couple of decades ago, wanted to help Jews who were taken advantage of in the Holocaust. When they came out of the Holocaust and they went to the insurance companies that they had bought insurance policies from, death, and they life insurance. And they wanted to collect some money from the insurance companies after the war, World War II. The insurance companies in Europe said, sorry, you don't have a death certificate. We're not giving you a penny. So these just had no recourse, nothing they can do. And for many, many years, they just, ran around the world and tried to rebuild their lives. So this attorney, she decided she wants to do something about it. However, the rules of the world, the norm of the world, and the rules and regulations would not allow her to sue these insurance companies. There were some rules in the legislature that would not allow her to take them to sue them. So this woman had holy chutzpah. She went to Sacramento and she spoke with the legislature and convinced certain lawmakers to change the rule in Sacramento so that it would enable her to sue the insurance companies in Europe and collect millions of dollars on behalf of the Holocaust survivors who had never been given any of this money that they had bought from the insurance companies, the policies. Now, they weren't able to determine who gets what exactly and who really could collect or not. So it was a fund that was set up for all the Holocaust survivors, and whoever needed was able to take a certain amount from this fund. She won the case, and millions of dollars were distributed to Holocaust survivors around the world who needed help. Some of them really, really needed. Were living in poverty and were living in lack and need. So that's an example of a holy chutzpah, that a woman took action to help people who were taken advantage of, and she had to not just follow the rules of the world. She had to change the rules and the laws of the world. And she got assistance for it from the legislature of the United States, of the California legislature. And she was able to help many, many Jews with millions of dollars. So this is just one example. And every day in our everyday life, we all have also opportunities to have this standing up for what's good, even if it's not necessarily our job or necessarily something we have to, according to Torah law, deal with. But as Jews, we feel this need to bring God's will. God's will is that there should be abundance for everybody, health for everybody, wealth for everybody. And it is my birthday this Shabbos, so I give everybody a bracha, blessing, that godliness should be revealed in a way of abundance in this physical material world. And that does make that as the conclusion of his sikha, of this talk over here, that we all have this power within us to be like Yehuda or to be like Mordechai, and to have this holy chutzpah within us. And furthermore, the world was created in such a way that in order for us to bring about this godliness revealed in this physical world of God beyond the world, it takes God first concealing himself in the world and us having this attachment to God anyway, beyond, and realizing that God has powers beyond the world, and connecting our power and our desire to bring that revealed into the world, and then we reveal it in the world. So we're kind of partners with God to reveal God's power in the world, beyond the world. And the only way to do it, though, is when we have this perseverance and this chutzpah, when we dig deep into our inner strength and we connect to God's power that are hidden, okay? And our powers that are hidden, that we think, oh, I don't have energy for this. I don't have desire to do this. This is not my job. I don't have time for this. And we go beyond that and we say, but this is the right thing. This is what God wants. That brings out inner strength within us, and that brings God's revelations beyond the norms of the world also. So, and this revelation will be fully revealed in the times of Mashiach, when God will not be limited by the rules of the world and the norms of the world, and godliness will be revealed to the whole entire world, Jews, non-Jews, everywhere in the world. Everybody will be recognizing godliness. All the creations, it says, will be serving God together, and that's going to be very, very soon. But the Rebbe says, in the meantime, while we are in this exile still, we can connect to the godly power of God as He will be revealed fully in the times of Mashiach. And how do we connect to this revelation of God as He will be during times of Mashiach? It's through this holy chutzpah, through this tenacity, this perseverance, and attaching ourselves to the belief that God is not limited and bound by the norms of the world. And we, by connecting ourselves to His will, to bring that power revealed, can do it. And so that's the crux of this sikha. Okay, the Rebbe ends this talk with, in actuality, the Rebbe says to bring holy books into our home, to buy more books and bring more holy books into our home. There are some books that were taken and they're still actually held in Russia. So there's certain things that still need to be done to redeem and to bring things out of exile, including some books and manuscripts that are still held hostage in a library in Moscow. So yeah. So this is a synopsis of the talk of Parshas Vayigash 57-52, and it's quite groundbreaking in terms of this kind of, from what I take from it, this idea that we have the power to connect to God beyond the limitations of the world, and not just when it comes to things that are of obligation, but even things that are not obligatory. But we see that these are God's will. We know that these are God's will. These are the kind, just things that God wants in the world. And we have the ability, by having this holy chutzpah and willing to put ourselves and extend ourselves, that's what actually connects us to God's power beyond the world, and it arouses the ability for us to actually affect the change in the world and make the world help us and assist us. So, and then we can change rules, change norms, change perception, and we don't have to be limited and say, well, nobody cares or nobody wants or there's no way or it's not allowed, or right. When we have something good we want done, we can make it happen. And if we have this holy chutzpah, that's what makes it happen. Meaning, even if there wasn't a way for it to happen to begin with, by having this holy chutzpah, this engenders and enables and activates God's energy in the world that's not limited by the rules of the world that He created. So that's the trick. So good luck, and if anybody has any questions, and also send me. beischanaca.com is my website, or beischana.ca. beischana.ca.weebly.com. For some reason, you have to do that on certain machines. I'm also on the YouTube channel, Beischana YouTube channel, and you can email beischana770@gmail.com, I'm looking forward to seeing you next Sunday, hopefully on time. Take care.